Let's bring in Karl Rove, a man who has some questions down in Texas. Hello, Karl, to you. I see a whiteboard off to your right. What are your questions here that we need to focus on, you believe?
Well, first of all, let's be clear. Merrick Garland is in a tough place because there are big questions about how this all came about. How did they get there? Who took them there? Did the vice president take them there? Did his staffers who worked for him there, many of whom are now back in the administration, how did they get there? Did he draw on these to write his memoir? He writes a memoir after he leaves the White House, talking about his experience, particularly in foreign affairs. We understand that a number of these have to do with Ukraine, where he was in charge of U.S. government efforts to discourage corruption in Ukraine. So did he draw on these to write his memoir? So did other people see those during that process? Is there a connection between the Penn Biden Center and the $54 million that the University of Pennsylvania receives from China during the period that he is vice president and during the period that the Penn Biden Center is set up? And who or what are those sources of the Chinese dollars? The University of Pennsylvania has not been forthcoming about this. They said, well, no funds were solicited on behalf of the Penn Biden Center. Well, that's not the question. The question was, were Chinese monies used to underwrite the Penn Biden Center and to pay the former vice president $1 million for him in the years while he contemplated running for president? And then finally, why won't the president look at the documents? He's the ultimate guy in charge of classification, and yet he says, well, my lawyers tell me don't look at the documents. Well, maybe you ought to look at the documents so that you can help understand what it's all about. But look, the White House wants to stay away from this, but they're not going to be able to stay away from it. They made the key mistake for Joe Biden was the president went on, I believe it was CBS with Scott Pelley, and took a 2x4 to President Trump on his taking documents to Mar-a-Lago, saying it was irresponsible. He couldn't imagine how that would happen. Those words are going to come back to haunt the sitting president.
Yeah, this story is not going to end because if he won't look at the documents and the press secretary won't answer any questions, the press, as you can see, they're frustrated and they're going to keep asking about it. I want to also get your take on this, Karl, because Bill and I find this absolutely astounding. So Bloomberg had this headline late last night saying that migration gets short shrift at Biden-AMLO summit after border visit, saying that U.S. and Mexican cabinet officials ran out of time before discussing migration in a formal meeting in Mexico City on Monday. Oh, that's according to people familiar with the matter, leaving a major issue between the countries largely unaddressed. Karl, how is that not the first item on the agenda?
I'm gobsmacked. I have no idea. 3 strikes. Strike 1, he finally goes to the border, El Paso. But they clean everything up so that the press crew traveling with them doesn't see what the people of El Paso are having to suffer through every day and what the illegal migrants are having to suffer through living in tent cities on city streets. They clean it all up before he arrives. That's strike 1. Strike 2 is his administration, led by the Department of Homeland Security, comes out with a series of non-answers. I'm still trying to figure out what the heck they recommended. We're going to allow certain people from certain countries to be processed quicker and allow them to stay in the United States. Where's the thing that's going to say we're going to secure the border? And strike 3 is he doesn't walk into that meeting and say, boys, I know we need to talk about energy and economy, mutual cooperation, but I need to start with a big problem that's affecting us all, our southern border and your southern border, Mr. President of Mexico. And he doesn't even bring it up. For God's sake, this shows that his visit to El Paso was for PR purposes only and that he has no understanding of what is going on our southern border and the misery that is being affected upon our communities and on these illegal migrants who are coming across the border.
And you may be very right in your explanation. There may be one more, Karl, and that is they're accepting of this border situation. They're accepting of migration, and they're accepting of open borders. They do not understand. They do not care. They're living in la-la land, and it is shocking that the President of the United States will not understand the impact that this is having on our border and on the states along the Mexican border. Thank you, Karl.